recently you took a trip and you said you completed some breathing exercises on this trip. So can you talk about your experience with, having intentional breathing exercises, what it's properly, called, if I'm calling it the wrong thing?
No, I think breathing exercises would be right. Although I think breathing exercise undermines how intense this was. So I would just say this is a breathwork session. So I was in Sedona with 3 of my friends. We go every year for a few days, some of the most productive, uninterrupted days of work, mixed in with some hiking, good dinners. Like, it's really kind of it's almost like a mastermind. Like, it sounds like a guy's trip, but we all are working the entire time, except for, I think it was Tuesday afternoon, one of the gentlemen had been before, and he hired a woman to come in and do a breathwork session with us. So I've done Wim Hof breathing before. You can Google that, but Wim Hof, he's the guy that made cold baths and cold plunges popular. He has a breathing technique. You basically, it's almost like hyperventilating, but you do deep breath in, shallow breath out. You do it for 25, 30 times and hold your breath. And in doing that, like, I can hold my breath for like 3 minutes. You ask me to hold my breath now for 3 minutes, I can't do it. But you're getting more oxygen in your blood, which allows you to do it. And like, your body tingles a little bit, and there's a lot of health benefits to it. Like, so I've done that before, but nothing like we did. So it was 2 hours total of time with this instructor, but probably an hour of breath work. I lost track of time. But we just basically, we laid down, we had covers over our eyes, and we were just breathing, deep breath with your mouth open, and then a shallow breath out. So again, similar to Wim Hof, getting more oxygen in your body. And I don't know how long it took, but then I got to a point where I was so deep into it that my body felt really heavy. And the greatest explanation or analogy I give to that is like that ride at the fair where you go in, it's like a flying saucer looking thing. It starts spinning and then you like stick to the wall, that centripetal force. I felt like that. Like, to move my body felt like there was something holding me down, but not in a scary way. And in that, you just get really deep and kind of start to connect with your subconscious. And I don't remember having any like crazy thoughts or anything. I just remember being really present in that moment. I wasn't bothered by my friends breathing, because the breath work can get really loud at times if you want. But I was just really in this deep, dark space that wasn't scary and very calm. And the word I used when I came out of it was, I felt like blissful the whole time. I can't explain why, because there weren't thoughts going in my head, but I felt like, I do remember feeling like I was getting deeper and deeper and closer to something. And I don't know what it was. And a few things that I do remember from it was that as I felt like I was going deeper and getting closer to whatever it was, I noticed that my breath was getting more shallow. So it wouldn't be as loud. I wasn't doing it as deep because I was at this deep level. I didn't need to. And then the longer I stayed with the shallow breath, like, I would start to get further away from where I was, almost like I'm drifting back up to consciousness if I was falling down to subconscious. So I was drifting back up. So then I'd pick my breath back up and I would go. And it was kind of cool to be able to control the depth that I was going to. But it was also a little frustrating that I couldn't figure out what I was so close to. Like, all I can say is that I felt like there was something that I wanted really, really, really bad that was like just out of my grips. And I remember thinking, like, how do I get there? Do I need to breathe hard? Like, how do I get there? And I never got there. But I did have a cool experience where I basically saw a silhouette. So even though my eyes were closed, I was looking and I saw a silhouette, mainly of a face like to shoulders almost. And I'm convinced it was like my soul or my subconscious or whatever. I think it was me looking back. But the really weird thing about it was, as I remember it, everything is black and the silhouette was a darker black. So it wasn't like the silhouette was lighter. It was actually darker than the dark that I was looking at, and that's how I was able to see it. No features, nothing like that, just the silhouette. And I felt like it was me looking back at me, afterwards we kind of talked about things, and as you're still kind of in this state of, I don't know, just coming back down, I remember explaining to my friends that I felt like it was in the movie Interstellar. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but that's a space movie. I love it. Christopher Nolan directed it. But long story short, there's a point, and this doesn't ruin the movie, there's a point where they're in space traveling, and Matthew McConaughey looks over and he sees like this, almost like a glob kind of coming at them, and Anne Hathaway reaches up and like touches hands, and they're like, oh, it's the first interdimensional high five. You end up finding out that that's Matthew McConaughey in this time thing. But I felt like it was that I was looking back, either back at myself or forward at myself or at myself inside. I don't know, but I'm convinced it was somehow attached to me of what that was. And I think what I was seeking and that I was hoping and trying to go after is just kind of like answers about like, what am I supposed to be doing? You know, what does the next phase of my life look like? There's things I'm thinking about. What's the answer? Tell it to me. And obviously, I don't know that you do a breathwork session and you get that, but it was really, really cool. So I would highly encourage you, regardless if you're seeking something major, if you're living your authentic life, like find someone who does breathwork and has been doing it for a period of time, because I think there's a lot of people popping up saying they do it. This woman's done it for 20 years and does a bunch of other stuff. And in Sedona, that's a very spiritual place. So the people doing it out there are really doing it versus here in Fishers, Indiana, but do it. And it was a really cool experience. And you can even find like some YouTube videos and other things to do smaller versions of it, but it was really cool. And one of the coolest parts of the experience coming out of it, I remember looking over, and on the curtain in the living room we were at, there was a small little lizard on it. And so I'm doing what I always do. I Google like what are lizards in Sedona, and I found out it was a whiptail lizard. Like I thought it was like a salamander, but it's a whiptail lizard. So then the next step is Googling what is the spiritual meaning of seeing a whiptail lizard. And going into the breathing session, we set an intention as a group that we wanted the focus of the breathwork session to be centered around growth, new beginnings, kind of positive things about coming up. And when I Googled the meaning of a whiptail lizard, it was basically those things. It was new beginnings, it was growth, it was good things coming. So like to me, it was kind of wild that we get done doing this very spiritual and personal breathwork session, and then we wake up so we open our eyes and get out of it and see this lizard who's basically representing what we said we wanted to go after. And so just like I wrote about that earlier in the week in the daily notes, but like that's an example of like the synchronicities that happen. And then one that follows up, not connected to the breath work, but since I'm talking synchronicities, we on a whim started looking at a new house. Like I don't know if we move, I don't know if it's going to happen. I've surrendered to this possibility, but we found a house that we liked, and last night after Leo's basketball game, we actually drove by it to look at it, and we're looking at it and everybody likes it, kind of getting excited about it. And then we go around the backside to look at the patio, and there's a frog in the grass that Silas almost steps on, and then Leo almost steps on it, and I see this frog. So then I get my phone out and I'm looking like the spiritual meaning of a frog, and so frogs are a positive sign in a lot of cultures, but it basically is a sign of abundance and prosperity and good things coming your way. Now, I don't know if that frog was there about the house, but I will tell you there was no reason for this little frog to be back in the backyard because there wasn't water nearby. There's a pond that's in the neighborhood but way far away. Like it probably would have taken that frog a day to travel where we were. So the fact that we were back there looking at this house that we all liked, that kind of came to our attention out of nowhere, and it was a positive sign. I'm trying to digest what that might mean in the grand scheme of things, because as I check that with my intuition, I have mixed messages in my intuition right now as far as whether or not this house is something we should pursue or it'll even come through, and I'm surrendering to that. So there's the mixed messages there, which I think are intuition and emotions in there at the same time, and that's the conflicting. I've got to let the emotions settle to really tap into the intuition, but then I have this universe sign that's positive at that house. So we'll see, but I should only share that as a connection to the whiptail coming out of the breathwork session. So point of that being, when you're dialed in and you have alignment of spirit, mind, and body, like these things happen regularly, and while they don't give you the answer, they give you indication whether or not you're heading in the right direction or even considering the right things. So the frog might just mean, yes, you should explore this, but maybe you should explore this because no, this house is not what you should do, and now you know that for a fact and just stay where you're at. Or it could mean, yes, this is something you should do and everything will work itself out. This is the place you're supposed to be at for the next chapter of life. And we won't know until more time goes on, but I do know that that frog was there for a reason, to help me say, all right, keep on exploring this, and then we'll see what happens down the road. So back to breath work, you should totally do it. It's awesome. Makes me want to get back to doing Wim Hof every single day, just because of, if I can get a fraction of that feeling again, like I could see myself getting addicted to doing that breath work because it was such a cool experience. Now, one thing I'm not certain is, I don't know if every session like that will be the same thing, because I think that what you bring to the breathwork session will influence how that breathwork session goes. So maybe if I did it again by myself, or even if I did it with the same woman again, things in life may be different at that time, and my energy may be different, and my response to the breathwork might be different. But that first one was amazing, and that blissful feeling, it's funny, I told Ange that, like, all I can think is like bliss. She's like, I've never heard you use that word before, and I honestly don't think I ever have, and I can't describe to you what bliss feels like. All I know is that, like, there's happy and really happy, and bliss is like way, like, to the point of, I can't confirm this because I didn't wipe, but I believe there were, like, I had tears during my breathwork session because of how good I felt from a bliss standpoint. And it's not like an erotic feeling good. It's like I just felt so amazing that, like, tears came out my eye. So if that doesn't make you want to do breathwork, I don't know what else will.